Good. Are you able to connect?
Yes,
Sorry? You are able to connect? Uh, Tell me if you are able to get the sound. One, two, 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. One, two, 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Please kindly type yes if you're able to get me. Testing 1, 2, 1, 2. Checking 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Okay, this is great. All right, we can start. Hello, are you able to get me? Thank you. We can start without wasting much of the time. You let me know on the board. I've tried to zoom a little bit. Yeah, so you let me know if you are still not able to get what you are supposed to get there. All right. Okay, fine. Let's begin. It's okay? Thank you. All right, so like I mentioned in the morning, we have finished the part where we were looking at the maths entirely. So now I want us to continue with the physics. We are going to look at the next topic, which is electrostatic fluids. Okay. So this is where actually the physics begins from. When we talk about electrostatic fields. So in essence, what we are trying to do is that we are trying to see the interaction of, for example, if you have a particle that is positively charged and you have a particle that is negatively charged, what is going to happen when you bring them together? Or if you have both that are positively charged or they are both negatively charged, what are some of the things that we expect? Like, for example, if you remember very well when you were doing your first year, you remember that you were looking at some charges and that you had to say like a charges repel as well as like charges attract. So that is the same thing we want to remind ourselves here. But before we do that, I want to mention about the first thing which we want to look at, which is actually what is called the electric field. So we want to look at what is called the electric field. So the electric field in simplicity is just a space or some a field where we have these electrons are passing. In other words, we have, this is like a field which normally is denoted by lines in this course and is given by E with a vector sign on top, showing that this electric field has both magnitude and what? And direction. So that is what is critical. Now, all right, in doing this, the first thing we want to look at, actually, first of all, we need just to, define what this is. So, if, for example, we have a charged particle here, and this charged particle is actually positively charged. So, what we'll have is that we'll have some fields, which is the electric field, which will be pointing in that direction. If this particle is negatively charged, for example, we'll have a situation where these electric fields, they are actually pointing inside. Like the situation you had with a magnet. We say if you have a magnet in this way, this is your north pole, this is your south. What is there is that you have the magnetic field lines moving in this direction. I think we remember this very well from first year. So in the same manner, we have the positive and the negative. We know that these electric fields will be moving from the positive to the negative in that direction. All right. Now, let's move on to look at what is called the Coulomb law. So we are saying this is the Coulomb's law. Of course, this is not the first time we are getting that. This is not the first time that we are getting this Coulomb's law. What is important is for us to remind ourselves what this law is, and thereafter we are able to actually look at it from the electromagnetic field point of view. Let's assume, so we are saying, let us assume that Q1 and Q2 are actually charges, right? Now, What we do is that in this event, we may have this charge here, which we are calling Q1. Then we have another one here, which we are calling Q2. So it means that this distance between them is what we are calling versus R in capital letters. Now, what is there is that this Q2, depending on the charge that it has been given, it will actually be either negative or positive. So depending on the charge that it has been given. So what is there is that, just check. All right, so now, okay, so if for example, this is positively charged, that is negatively charged, it means that this Q1 will be exerting some force in some certain direction, which we are calling F1, and then this will be exerting some force which we are calling F2 in this direction, right? That means here, because this is a vector, we'll have a unit vector which is called A21 in that direction, and then we'll have a unit vector which is called A12 in that direction. In other words, the force that is going to be exerted by this on that, it is actually as a result of the way these two have been charged. For example, if we have positive and positive, it means that these two are going to repel each other. If we have positive and negative, like in our case, it means that we will have some attraction here. So that is what is very, very important. Now, how does Coulomb himself, this guy who came up with this law, how does he define what we get from here? Now, we see to it that from his definition, he says this F1 that we are able to see here is actually, proportional. It's proportional to Q1, Q2 over the square of the distance between the two multiplied by the unit vector. In other words, we know that F is equal to distance, is equal to this F1, which is the force exerted by this on that, is given by this charge multiplied by a Q1 multiplied by Q2 divided by the distance that is separating them, and then we multiply that by the vector, unit vector A21 to make this component become a vector as well. So it means if this is proportional to this, then there should be a constant here in order for us to put an equal sign. So straight away, what we get is that this is the same as equal to K, which is the proportionality constant, Q1, Q2 over R squared. This is multiplied by 2, 1, right? So now, this K is actually what is being defined as 1 over 4 pi epsilon 0. So that is the definition of K, which is a constant. So we are saying that is 1. All right. So this is the proportionality constant, and we are saying that this K is defined by 1 over 4 pi epsilon 0. This is the constant. Don't mind about it. It will be given to you. And then this is multiplied by Q1, Q2 over R squared. And then we multiply by A21 as a unit vector. So in the same manner, we know that for F2, this will be the same as 1 over 4 pi epsilon 0 Q, that is Q1 Q2 over R squared multiplied by A12 in that way. So this is how you get the definition of F1 and F2 in that way. Alright, so the first thing that we need to note here is that let's look at the some of the conditions that we have. For example, from our example of two charges that we've given ourselves, we need to note the following. So the first thing that we need to note is that if we have the two charges separated by a very long distance, which is what we are calling R, so these charges may be considered as point charges. That is the first thing we need to point charges. So, point charges is because the interaction between them and the next charge, the distance is so large such that we are able just to consider this not as a body but as a point. So that's why we are calling them point charges. Right. So the other thing we need to note under this Coulomb's law is that it only applies to point charges. That is all. If you bring, for example, a charged body which is so huge, this law is not going to apply and it is not going to work because a Coulomb's law has limitations as a result of how it can be applied. Right? Okay. Now the next aspect we need to mention here is that if we look at this diagram, we realize that this F1 is facing in this direction, this F2 is facing on the other direction. So straight away we have to conclude that actually from our example, this F1 must be equal to minus F2. So this is very critical in Coulomb's law. That must be noted. Right. Okay. So we move on. So we look at an example before we can move to the next aspect. Let's look at an example of this Coulomb's law. Okay, example. So we are saying calculate the force between 2 point charges, that is Q1 and Q2, which that is located at these points x1, y1, z1, and x2, y2, z2, in that way. Right. Now, let's take our solution. First of all, when you are given a question like this, it's very important for you to try and sketch a diagram for that case that you've been given. Now, in this case, we have these points x1, y1, z1, and x2, y2, z2. So let's try and formulate the xyz plane here. So we take that point to be x1, y1, and z1, and this other point to be x2, y2, and z2. So meaning, a vector from the origin to that point is what we are calling q1, and then this is the distance, this r1, then here to q2, we are calling this r2, then we have the connector there. So this is our x, y, and z. So then, straight away what we should mention is that we now need to define all these sides that we have. Alright, so in this triangle AOB, of course this is our A, this is our B. We know for sure that in this triangle we know that R1 plus AB is equal to R2. That is from the vector analysis. In other words, we are saying R1, which is this, then plus AB, which is that, is equal to R2 in that way. So what does this imply? This implies that AB, which is this, which we've been asked to say we should find the force here between the 2 points. It means that this is the distance that we are considering. So we have defined this distance in terms of R1 and R2, which must be equal to R2. This is R2 minus R1 in that way. So that means the implication here is that AB must be equal to, what is our R2? Our R2 is nothing but this is R2. So we have x1, x2 minus x1, just like that. So we have x2 minus x1, then okay, that is multiplied by ax plus y2 minus y1 multiplied by y, that is ay as unit vector plus z2 minus z1, this we multiply by az as a unit vector. So what we get is that now, in order for us to find this, we need to get the magnitude. So the implication here is that R2 minus R1, all this magnitude now must be the square root of all this. So what we are saying is that this is x2 minus x1, all this as multiplied to, actually we can leave that unit vector for now, then that is plus y2 minus y1, then plus z2 minus z1 in that one. So finally, we know that from definition, f by definition is equal to k q1 q2 over r squared. This we are multiplying it by a unit vector, which is AB unit vector. So this is the same as 1 over 4 pi epsilon 0, which is our constant, k, which is this one. And then we multiply that by, so this r squared now becomes our AD, which is this distance from A to B instead of the normal r squared. So this is AD squared, which is our r in the previous definition. And then what we get now is that this becomes our, that is 1 over q1 q2 over AB, all this squared. Then we are multiplying, alright, the unit vector, which is AB over AB here. So this is the definition of this unit vector. And thereafter, what we get is that we just need now to make replacements. Here we put AB, there we have our AB as the scalar. This is a vector, this is a unit vector, which gives you this unit vector here. That is the vector AB over AB is defined by that unit vector. So you can leave it at this stage, or you can fill in this AB over AB, which is just sum of them, which will come and cancel this other part, and then you get the rest is mathematics. Right. Okay, so let me look at another example which now involves figures, and let's see what we have. Let's look at another example here where we can do the calculation of figures instead of just the variables. Okay, so we are saying point charges, that is 5 by 10 to the minus 9 coulombs, and minus 2 times 10 to the minus 9 coulombs are located at, this is 2.0.4, that is a point, and minus 3, 0, and 5. Right. Now we are saying this is respective. Right. So the question is, determine the force on that is 10 to the minus 9 coulomb point charge located at 1, minus 3, then 7. That is the question which we are having. Alright, so we have been given points. We have been given point charges. The first one is 5 times 10 to the minus 9 coulombs. The second charge is minus 2 times 10 to the minus 9 coulombs. Then we have been asked to say what will be the kind of force that is going to be acted upon a point charge which is 10 to the minus 9 coulombs, which is at the point 1, minus 3, and 7. So we know that this first charge is acted at this point. The second charge is located at that coordinate. Now, in order for us to find the solution, I'll put it up here so that you are able to actually see properly. So we look at the solution from here. The first thing that we need to have is that we need to collect our data here. Okay? So we know that in Q1, so we are saying let Q1 be equal to 5 times 10 to the minus 9 coulombs. Then we have Q2 be equal to minus 2 times 10 to the minus 9 coulombs. Okay, so that is what we have. And then, of course, that is the charge. Then here we have the position. From those coordinates that we have been given, we know that R1 will be equal to, which will be the distance from the origin to Q1, will be equal to 2ax, then plus, because that is plus 4az. Because here there is no y because it is 0. Then R2 will be equal to the points, which is minus 3ax plus 5az. In other words, the coordinate system in the y direction, the position is showing that there is no displacement in the y direction. So, having been given that, so we also have the charge Q. So, the charge Q, which is our question now, which is equal to 10 minus 9 coulomb, is located, this is located at R, which is equal to ax minus 3ay, then plus 7az, like that, because this is coming from this point. This is 1 minus 3 and 7. So this is 1 minus 3 and 7 in that direction. Now, what we have is that we now need to redefine the distances between R1 and R2, as well as R and R2. So what we are saying is that this R minus R1 must be equal to ax minus 3ay plus 7az, all this minus 2. So we are saying this minus that, which is 2ax plus 4az, and this straight away gives us minus ax into minus 3ay into plus 3az, like that. Okay? Then what of this difference minus R2? This must give us what? We have this there, which is the R minus, then we bring this here, which is the minus 3ax, then plus 5az. So this straight away gives us 4ax minus 3ay, and then plus 2az, like that. So this is what we get from here. Now, Of course, if we do the magnitudes, straight away what we get is this. All right, so if we do the magnitudes, so straight away what we get is the following. So if we have the magnitude of R minus R1, it means that this must be equal to the square root of 19. Okay? Because we have to add that which is equal to 19, and then R minus R1, all this must be equal to the square root of 29. When you do the calculations from here, when you square both and then have the square root, what you get is actually the square root of 29. Now, we know that from definition, so this implies that actually F1 must be equal to 1 over 4 pi epsilon 0 into Q1 into Q2, into Q into Q1, that is the way it is. Then this must be multiplied by R. This is R minus R1 as the magnitude. All this must be divided by, R minus R1, all this squared. So that is where you get that, and then the rest is mathematics. You have this, you have that, you have that, you have the square. So straight away, F2 will be equal to 1 over 4 pi epsilon 0, Q into Q2, then R minus R2, all this divided by R minus R2 squared. So again, you are able to make those replacements. Whatever remains there now is entirely mathematics. So that is what is important. All right. So we move on to the next aspect. I've talked about the electric field here. I've talked about the Coulomb's law. I've talked about how to calculate the force between the charges, which is coming from the Coulomb's law. And then now I want us to talk about what is called the electric intensity. I've talked about the electric field, so we are saying the space surrounding a charged particle is called the electric field. In other words, any particle that finds itself in that area, it means that it will have to interact with this particle because of its charges. Now, let's look at what is called electric intensity and then try to find out the difference between the two. All right. Okay. Now we move on to what is called the electric intensity. So we shall define it, and then from there we'll get to understand what it really means. So we look at what is called electric intensity. So electric intensity. Okay, excuse me just a moment. All right, we can continue. So, the simple definition of electric intensity, this is defined as the force per unit charge, as simple as that. In other words, we are saying that the electric intensity, they use the same symbol with electric field. So you have to be extra careful when you are trying to define these two. So electric field or electric intensity is the same as we are saying this is the force per unit what? Per unit charge. So we can literally write it like that, as simple as that. So we are saying that electric intensity is defined as the quotient of the force divided by the charge. As simple as that. All right. So let's look at an example. If we have a charge here, which we are calling Q, then we want to measure. Of course, we have some electric field in that direction, and now we want to measure the intensity around a certain point that we have picked at a certain radii. So this is our R, and then we want to measure the intensity at that point, which is P. So now, what we want is to check, because we cannot check well what is happening from this center, which is our Q, we need to put a small charge here, which we are calling Q2, so that which we are calling Q, small letter, so that we see how it reacts with the Q that is at the center of our discussion here. Now, we are saying, let this Q, small q, be placed at point P. Okay, so it means that the force that is acting on Q is given by F, must be defined by, of course we know that we have our constant there, and then we multiply the Q, which is this one, multiplied by the small q, that is where we are coming from. All this we have to divide it by r squared, which is the distance between Q capital and Q small letter. And then from there, we have to multiply that by the unit vector r, which is in the direction of the distance between the two charges. All right. So this is how we define the force here. But remember that the intensity, okay, electric, that is our electric intensity, is actually given by E, which is equal to F divided by Q in that way. So straight away, what we see is that this is actually the same as, we can redefine that. We have F, which is what we have there, which is 1 over 4 pi epsilon 0 multiplied by Q, capital Q small letter, divided by R squared into R unit vector. All this is F, so we are dividing it by Q, like that. And immediately, what we see is that this and that will be cancelled, so the electric intensity finally becomes, so the electric intensity actually gives us, right? So that is 1 over 4 pi epsilon 0 into Q over R squared into R unit vector. So we can still try to expand that as we try to look. We can still try to expand that so that we put it in the simplest form. So don't forget, the electric field is the space surrounding a charged particle, and the electric intensity is the force that is measured per unit charge. So that's the difference. You have to take note of that. All right. Okay. So now, what we have is, let me pick it up from here. We are saying that the electric intensity is now defined as 1 over 4 pi epsilon 0 from our example. We are left with Q over R squared into R as a unit vector. So I want you to take note of the following. Note that the unit vector R, which is the unit vector, is actually defined as the vector R divided by R itself. That gives us the unit vector. So we have this divided by R. So this is what gives us this unit vector. So immediately we get this and then we replace it there. So that what we have is that E must be equal to 1 over 4 pi epsilon 0. We are multiplying this by Q over R squared into, now we are replacing this by R over R, like that. So immediately what we see is that this R, this becomes 1 over 4 pi epsilon 0 into Q over R squared. So this and this becomes R to the power 3 into that. So this is how you define the electric intensity. That one. It's very important formula for a simple diagram. So you have to take note of that. All right. Now, Okay, let us look at just one example, then I'll end here so that I don't bombard you with a lot of things. We'll see how we can look at one derivation. It's a long one, but we want us to go through together, and then we can end the class at that point. So let's make sure that we follow this up nicely, and then you look at the example, because these examples, they come in different shapes and forms, so you have to make sure that the example that we are looking at, you must not mix it with the next example, because I've seen in the past some students, when you ask them about the intensity, for example, for the electric field intensity due to a charged circular ring, then they are giving you electric field intensity due to another kind of another kind of an example. For example, an infinite wire. That is the solution they come and plug there. So it's very important that even as we look at this example, we are going to move together so that you are able to see the differences when we'll be looking at the other examples that are yet to follow. All right. So look at examples. All right. So the first one that we need to look at is electric field intensity. This is due to a charged circular ring. All right. Okay, so first of all, I want us to put a diagram which you have in your notes. Then we shall be discussing that way. So we have our XY plane in this manner. Then we have, this is our ring that we are considering. So this is the ring that we are considering. Then we have, that is our y-axis, this is our x-axis, that is our z-axis. So this is our origin here. Now, we'll put a point on this axis, which we are calling point P. So the distance from here up to there is what is called z, which is in the z direction. Then we want to cut some part here, a small part on this ring, which we are calling a small, this is the length, so we are calling that the L. And then we are having that point, which is our A there. Then from there we have the distance, which is from the center up to where that point is, we call it R. After that, we have now this long distance all the way up to this other point, which is moving in that direction. This is our electric field due to this point, the L here, on that point charge Q. So we have our unit vector here, which we are calling AR, and then we also have this, which we are calling the radius, which is R, and then the unit vector here, we are calling the vector here from here to there, we are calling it capital letter R. Now, having said that, of course, that is our density. This wire, of course, the ring itself has the density, which is rho L. So we are saying, let us consider a charged circular ring of radius R, which is this one, and then which is placed in the XY plane. Okay, now in our solution we need to note the following. So what we are saying is that this is our solution. So we are saying let rho L, this is what is called the linear charge density. Which is this one here that I've mentioned that side. Then we are saying P is any point, so we are saying P must be any point on the Z axis, like that. Then, all right, so let us consider, so we are saying consider an element. Consider an element. This element, we are calling it dl, which is this one here. This element. That's a small piece that you are getting there, which is our dl. Then from there, we want to consider just this small component here and see how much force we are going to get from this with respect to this point charge that we have placed there, which is the point P. Now, we are saying we consider an elementary length dl on the ring at point A. So this is at point A, which is this point here, which I've put here. Now, the first thing we need to note is that the charge on the ring, which we are calling a small charge on the ring, which we are calling dq, must be equal to the linear charge density multiplied by dl. Okay? That is very, very important. So the charge is equal to the linear charge density multiplied by the dl, which is a small angle. Alright, so having said that, so we want now to define the electric field, the electric intensity. So we are saying electric intensity, that is at point P. At P, that is due to the charge dq. This is given by dE, which is a very small time electric intensity due to dq, which is as a result of the linear charge density multiplied by our dl. Remember, we have only picked a small dl, which is this one. We have not picked the whole ring. We want to see what this is going to give us. So we are saying dE, which is a small electric intensity due to the dq, which is actually embedded in this piece that we have considered, which is the dl. That should give us dq divided by 4 pi epsilon 0 multiplied by r squared and then multiplied by the unit vector in this direction. So that is very, very important. Okay, now we'll continue to try and redefine this. So we come this way. I will rewrite that, what is at the bottom there, so that we are able to see it nicely and see how we are going to move. So what we have is that dE is equal to dq over 4 pi epsilon 0 multiplied by the r squared into the unit vector in the direction of r. So this implies that we can write this as dE being equal to, dE must be equal to, that is, remember, that is dq, which is, dq is equal to this, so we make this replacement in our formula there, so that we have the linear charge density multiplied by L over 4 pi epsilon 0 r squared into a r squared. Mark that as your equation 1. It's very important. So, where actually this r is the distance, this is nothing but the distance of point P from the end, as simple as that. Okay, so now we want to do some few, arithmetics. We know that from our diagram, if we check our diagram very well, we know that OA from the center to point A, where we have cut the DL, is nothing but R, and AP is equal to R itself, then OP is actually equal to Z. As simple as that. So, therefore, here what we have is that AO must be equal to minus R. That is from vector analysis. If OA is R, AO must be equal to minus R. So that means in the triangle, in this triangle OAP, what we have is that AO must be equal to, plus OP must be equal to AP from vector analysis. So the implication here is that minus R, which is this one here, we are making replacements, plus Z is OP, which is this one, OP, must be equal to R itself, which is AP, which is this one here. Alright, so we continue. That is simple vector analysis. Alright, now, what do we have? So the implication also is that, so we are saying this implies, and at the same time this implies that we can rewrite that as minus R dot A into the R direction as a unit vector plus Z. So we remove the vector since we are adding the unit vector, plus Z into AZ as a unit vector must be equal to R. So therefore, this R must be equal to the square root of R squared plus Z squared in this manner. As simple as that. So this is simple mathematics from a vector analysis. Now, this means that our unit vector, which is the same as R over R, must be equal to minus RA R unit vector, then plus Z AZ unit vector divided by R squared plus Z squared, and then square root of that. That is very, very important. Alright. So now, what is happening is that we have, remember from our equation 1, so remember, so we are saying from equation 1, we have that, we say that this dE, which is the electric field intensity, must be equal to the linear charge density multiplied by the dL over 4 pi epsilon 0 into this multiplied by the unit vector in the direction of R. So now, looking at what we have, this is the same as that, which is what we have there. So straight away, we can rewrite this as follows. This gives us the linear charge density dot dL over 4 pi epsilon 0 into R squared. This we multiply it by minus AR into AR plus Z AZ divided by R squared plus Z squared, like that. So we call this our equation 2 as we do the derivation. Now, let's move on to try and simplify that. All right. So we should note the following. So note that the radial components of E at point P are going to cancel. So, in other words, there are no components in the radial direction. So they are going to cancel. They are going to cancel each other, and only the vertical, not the radial, but the vertical, only the vertical components of E, only the vertical components of E are going to remain. As simple as that. So only the vertical components of E are going to actually remain. Simple as that. Now, that having been said, we know that dE is equal to rho dL over 4 pi epsilon 0 into R squared. This we have applied it by Z into AZ divided by R squared plus Z squared in that way. Meaning only this component is going to remain, which is the vertical. So the radial ones are going to cancel because the X will cancel the Y. As simple as that. So the implication here is that dE must be equal to the charge, the linear charge density multiplied by R dot define over 4 pi epsilon 0 into r squared plus z squared, for which we know we have replaced r squared, which is this one here. If we square this, we have r squared plus z squared. So that is what we have replaced there. And then from there, what we get is that this we multiply by z, az, divided by r squared plus z squared. So the implication, so we are saying okay, so here you have to take note that this dl, remember where dl is coming from. So this is what we have replaced with this. So you have to take note that this dl is nothing but equal to r d phi, which is using cylindrical coordinates. So here we are using cylindrical coordinates since we are looking at a ring coordinate system. As simple as that. Now, from here, straight away we have to reduce this. And how do we reduce it? We realize that actually this right part is not supposed to be like this, it's supposed to be like that. So we realize that actually from there, when we do the multiplication, we reduce that to say Te must be equal to the linear charge density multiplied by r d phi, all this divided by 4 pi epsilon 0 into r squared plus z squared to the power 3 over 2 into z of az in that direction. So we continue the derivation on the other side. All right. Now, what we have is that, therefore, since we have dE, which is equal to rho r d phi divided by 4 pi epsilon 0 into r squared plus z squared, all this 3 over 2 into z az as a unit vector, what we get is that, in fact, what we get is that we have to, in order to find E, we have to integrate on both sides so that we have E being equal to the integral of where phi is running from 0 to 2 pi, which is one, it's a ring. So this 2 pi, which is one side, then the other side, we have another 2 pi, which is equal to L, then we have R and phi. This we divide by 4 pi, which is our constant, multiplied by R squared plus Z squared, all this to the power 3 over 2, and then we have Z dot Az as a unit vector. So this is basically what we have, and when we do the computation here, basically what we get is that the linear charge density multiplied by R multiplied by Z, and Z as a unit vector, this is divided by 4 pi epsilon 0 into R squared plus Z squared, all this into 3 over 2. Then we have phi, which we are actually integrating from 0 to 2 pi. So immediately what we get is that this is just 2 pi minus 0, and therefore we have E, which is equal to the linear charge density multiplied by R multiplied by Z with respect to Az. Then we are dividing all this by 2 epsilon 0 into R squared plus Z squared, all this into 3 over 2. Then this is what you you get when you actually drive the charge density of the electric, that is electric intensity due to a ring. So when I ask you to find, or I ask you to derive the expression for the electric intensity, which is the electric intensity due to a charged circular ring, this is what you do, and this is the final answer that I expect from you. So I expect you to do all the calculations, don't miss the steps, follow the steps nicely, and understand the concepts that are needed in order for you to actually do the computation. All right, so we shall end here for today. When we meet next week, we shall straight away get to learn about another example. We shall get to the next example, which is the electric field intensity due to an infinite charge, that is an infinite line charge. So we have looked at a charged ring. Next week we shall look at an infinite line charge. Then we'll continue in that way. Thank you so much, and we'll meet next week. Bye-bye for now.